And to present our speakers for tonight, Shawn Steele.
Oh, I love this. Thanks for inviting me back. It's just great to be and see Paula. She's kind of the glue that keeps it together. This young man who's got the world's most complicated last name. I love Grace, especially the ones 2,000 years ago. They were really men. But in any event, I like to see the activity and the action. We had some fun with Milo on this campus. Right here. It was here. Boom. I remember right outside. We had several hundred. Come on, help me out, baby.
Pacifiers
That Jim Beaver brought up, and we passed it up to the left. Because they were unhappy. They needed a pacifier. Which is really got some good videos on that. So here's what I want to do. First of all, to get rid of that picture. That'd be nice. Much better. Number two, let's talk about what you want to talk about. I've had a great day. I started off 7:30 this morning. I got my buddy Congressman Warbacher. We're doing a super PAC, and so we can talk about that. I can't talk to him, but I can talk to you about it. And so it's a now down, dirty, vicious, internecine struggle. The stuff that I live for is just wonderful. Republican on Republican, eye gouging, no rules, and so that's great action. And then I did a little Barney and Friends this morning at 8:15, just barely. No, it's like a terrible freeway. Don't trust Waze, okay? How many times are you going to get screwed by Waze and finally realize that it is screwed up, like lots of other technology? Next, Lincoln Club speech in Long Beach, and a bunch of guys and girls, mostly girls, running for judge in Superior Court. That was a good thing to see. Got a lot of really credible people running for judge, and I like to see that. In LA County, nearly a hopeless wasteland at multiple levels, because anybody with a two-digit IQ is getting the hell out. That's just a bad place. LA at one time had dozens and dozens of international headquarters. Arco and Occidental Oil, Union Oil, they're all gone. City of LA has a single major international corporation in it. In the top 50, top 100, top 500. They're not in LA. They left years ago, and the jobs and the big salaries and the philanthropy that went along with that. So it's now kind of cascading into a homeless third world. Well, that's a whole separate discussion. So I'm opening up different subjects you may want to talk about. And if you don't have any questions, I'll ask you questions. Akimo had a weird request, a request that nobody's ever asked me to talk about before. I'm just going to do that out of fun. He says, "We want to hear this." I said, "No, Akimo. You want to hear this."
Yes.
Please. Nobody else has any interest in this except me.
What was it?
And I'll tell you in a second. And then what was that? And then I did Skype successfully. And actually, technology does work, in case you weren't too certain. So I spoke to the Siskiyou County Republican Central Committee. The concept that we still call it Central Committee is a Soviet-era language from the 1930s, but it's in the election law. The law we need to change Central Committee. That's what we call our Republican parties in the county. It's what the Democrats call it. They're Central Committees. How many years have ever been to Siskiyou? And how many can spell Siskiyou? How many knows where Siskiyou is? S-A-I-S-K-O-Y-O-U. Siskiyou. It's the northernmost county on the Oregon border. Nobody lives there. But there was a room full of people. I saw them Skype with my own eyes, and they're talking about the sanctuary state. So I'm coordinating that for the party. And my wife kind of kicked the ball and got back going with Orange County going forcefully against the pro-criminal sanctuary state laws of California, siding with the feds against the state. So we're facing probably the best issue we've had in 20 years. Nobody likes the sanctuary state except crazy, hardcore progressives that hate America. And so we're getting about half the Democrats, a good part of the declined states, and all the Republicans. It's a fantastic energizer. We've got two big things going for us: gas tax, which hurts the workers, and sanctuary state, which hurts normal human beings. For example, Orange County Sheriff told us that she released, under state law, 173 prisoners when their time was up in the jail. And normally the process was, until sanctuary law was passed, that you reported these, if they're illegals, you reported them to ICE, that ICE would be right there you know, right, you know, as they're walking out the door, I should say, come with me, young man, we're gonna deport you. And the state law is forbidding that, so they let 173 of these criminals down to the street. Who do they go to? Where do they go? They don't go to your neighborhoods. They go to the poor neighborhoods, and they go to, and they continue their felonious assault on mostly illegal immigrants and immigrants and new communities and minorities. And so the Democrats have figured out a new place of making the life of the illegal immigrant even more miserable, because we know 2/3 of the folks that are in prison are going to be in prison in 3 years. That's the basic concept of recidivism. But who's our criminal guy? Criminal justice, and I think you probably have seen a lot of stats in that regard. So when Michelle my wife, got the law passed, she's an immigrant, of course, and of the 5 supervisors, they're Republican, 3 are Asian, 2 are immigrants. So when they voted for that, that was quite a statement in itself. And then the sheriff said, you know what, I'm publishing all the names of all the prisoners so that ICE knows who they are when they're getting out, they can intercept them. So that's a smart thing. But it's troublesome that California is nullifying federal law on immigration. We know we have a federal system with lots of independence for states, but they don't get to control immigration. They don't get to rule on that. So there's the old Andrew Jackson rule. When South Carolina was nullifying a bunch of laws, federal laws, in 1830, you remember this in your history, he announced to the politicians in South Carolina, says, if you do that again, I'm going to go down and personally see every one of you is hung. And so they got the message. They stopped nullifying federal law, and they were behaved for 30 years, and then they attacked us for subterfuge. But it worked for a generation and a half. So that's kind of what's on my mind. What's on your mind? Keeble, do you have a question?
Well, I do have a question. So what do you think we can do against the...
That's not the question.
Oh, my question is...
You want to wait for that?
Yeah, we can wait.
Get into some good stuff first, and then we can... Yeah.
I do have a question on the admins. What do you think we can do about... The admins are imposing new insurance costs this year on, you know, to videotape, for instance, we have to pay $100 just to do that.
That's extortion. You know what? When you have a rule base, there's got to be some kind of a logical basis for that. And the bottom line is it's got to be appropriate to all clubs and organizations. And when you see that it's not, that's when you let me know. And then we'll put together a nice demand letter to the university. I love nothing better than beating the crap out of administrators because they're cowardly, they're leftist, they're parasites, and that's on a good day. So there may be some exceptions to that, but I haven't seen too many. But I've been going after administrators since I was in college, and so I have a pretty good idea how they roll. But the videotaping I see that.
Getting him insurance. How much did it cost Jason last time? It was more than 100 actually.
Yeah.
It was like 250 or something like that.
Yeah, and they made me get insurance.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just his friend with a camera.
Yeah.
So.
I don't get that. It's kind of weird and strange and expensive. You know, the university is going to come back. Well, it's liability. What happens if he, trips on his own cable? He's going to sue us, and it's silly stuff. But that's part of what the university. You walk around this beautiful campus. Billions have been put into it. Precious land, and the worst factor is that 80% of the money goes to ungrateful and hate American professors who, in fact, are overpaid on the work. 10 hours a week, 15 hours a week class time. You get paid several, 100,000 minimum. They are on a beautiful campus with adoring young students, and basically they don't produce much except their sophisticated propagandists, and that's really the great problem. I do see a good solution that's coming on the rise. I think a lot of people are not buying into the college education going forward. I think that's terribly important. You'll see a lot of colleges collapse in the future because you're going to get it online. You're going to be able to get the best work in the world online from some really smart person that knows his ponies. And more of our education's be online based. I've got a lot of you taking classes online that you're getting credit for, right?
Yeah.
You're not, okay, I didn't know that. I wasn't sure. Not you zero so far, but Orange Coast College has a whole campus dedicated to online. There's nobody in the building, but But it does show that that's where the future is going, and so we're seeing. So ultimately, MIT now has all of their classes online for free. I think Harvard's about to do the same thing. So that's really going to put the institutional, the campus, the requirements of the fantastic amount of cost sideline it, and it's going to really destroy really the left infrastructure. So you can have a lot of professors cackling at each other with no students. And but right now it's not that way. But you got to be an optimist and look to the future. All right, great question. So we're going to sue them if they screw up. What's your question about life?
What can we do as students to fight against sanctuary states?
Well, okay, I like that. First of all, are you from Orange County?
Registered to vote here. I don't live here though.
What, are you from some part in California or are you out of
LA.
state?
LA.
Okay, LA. We don't have a single city that's supported the sanctuary movement, anti-sanctuary movement. We got 25 cities now, mostly San Diego, Orange County, and the Inland Empires. We need a lot more. So I noticed that, I look at the map and I put out a bulletin. Did you get it?
Yes, I did.
At Wednesday after the city councils meet Tuesday night, and I'm sure that Kim will share that with you. Very exciting bulletin. You know what's up?
I think I have it in the email.
I'll be really dutifully impressed. And basically, we need to get this thing grassroots by, well, here's what they're doing in the Inland Empire. Nathan Miller, a former college student, as everybody is at one time, was the former state chairman of Young Republicans, has organized a posse of 200 people or so that when, hey, there's going to be a big vote in Upland next Tuesday night, 200 people show up. They're respectful, they're smart, they have signs, and for the goofball redneck racists that we don't want representing our cause, they marginalize and put them in a corner and watch them carefully. And smart people, mostly immigrants and minorities, are speaking on behalf of against the sanctuary.
Our pastor's funny, acting funny.
And that's a whole other ritual, passwords. I hate that. But so talking about getting into our going back to our communities, we're getting small towns, counties. We've got a whole Central Valley area. It's pretty conservative, and I'm hoping that they start getting on board in this thing. In Northern California, the state of Jefferson with 10 counties, that's who I talked with in Siskiyou County, that the sheriff was there. I mean, it's a small county, 44,000 people. There's more people living across the street than there is in all of Siskiyou County. They had the sheriff, the supervisors were there, and I spoke to them all in a parking lot. What I forgot is that I had my seatbelt on while I'm Skyping myself, and that must have looked pretty weird. They thought it was a tie at first. But it shows you that they'll come out formally and officially, and it's a real county. It's been there for 100 years, and the sheriff's going to make a statement. So we get more of those. That creates a critical mass. And what it does, as long as it's elevated, not anti-immigrant, that's key. If it's anti-immigrant, I'm not, because my children have immigrants for a mother, But if it's anti-immigrant, that's not the right way. But if it's basically, we don't have any room in America for people that break the law and hurt people, that are child molesters, that are wife beaters, that are prison, that are gang members. That are, you got to have some vetting, and if you're, by definition, if you're illegal, you got zero vetting. And if you go over the line and you're a guest in our country, we don't have the draconian laws that Mexico has. Mexico has nasty immigration laws, very vicious. And here in America, it's totally, we're too genteel. Oh, well, that's not quite the deal. But that's, you got the right word up there. That's true. So yeah, what's happening is that we're going to have a state convention. Who's going? State convention, May. Okay. Well, you guys are so lucky. What are you doing Friday night at 8 o'clock?
I wish I was going to smoke cigars.
Well, if you were going to go at 8 o'clock, what would you be doing Friday night at the State Republican Convention, San Diego at 8 o'clock tonight?
Smoking cigars.
That's right, smoking cigars, exactly. So we got a cigar party with college Republicans, and I think it's legal, right? Sure. Thank you. Thanks. That's it. Well, I'm a lawyer, and so that's my authority over here at Chemo. So I'll fly the cigars, we'll have a good time, you buy your own drinks, of course you're 21 or older, and so otherwise you get the drink sarsaparilla. But we'll have fun, so we're going to be talking a lot about the sanctuary state throughout the convention, because it's the best thing that's happened to the party. It's 80-20. 80% of the people agree with us, 20% don't. It's even half the Democrats agree with us. It's crazy to let prisoners not be deported. It's just crazy. And so that's clear enough. Okay, your question.
I know the NRA and the CRP had just announced new legislation, or new, I think it was a challenge against the, what was it, I think Proposition 63, whatever bill that turned down.
Boy, that's really arcane. I don't know. I like guns, but I don't know much about the legislation.
It was, there were some parts to it. I think one of the magazine confiscation got overturned, but it was the tax and new licensing for ammo.
Right. Well, and the NRA is challenging them, or
Yeah, they're challenging it, and how, I haven't been following very many things like it. What do you think the chance of success?
well, nationally 0.
0.
And one of them, and if the Democrats keep promoting that, they are going to keep losing Missouri and Midwestern states and Pennsylvania, because you've got a lot of people that don't care a lot about politics, but they'll vote to protect their guns and their Bible. Remember what Obama told us, and so it's a dangerous thing for Democrats to do, and the NRA is terribly powerful. And you saw how the liberals used the kids in Parkland. That by the way, that student's coming here. We announced that Mr. Hogg was invited to come to your campus. You guys are so lucky you can have a celebrity on campus. He'll probably have a Nobel Prize by then. He was rejected at every major university in America except at UCI. They're probably going to give him a scholarship and probably an office in the dean's office. So he'll be quite good. He's a great publicist, no question about it. He's taken Laura Ingraham off the air for a week. I mean, that's pretty powerful stuff. So we need to learn how to do that kind of stuff. And he's got 700,000 Twitter friends. Not as many as Kanye West. So that's a lot more. Your question.
With the whole thing going on with Kanye coming out, kind of his true self, where do you see the culture war heading? Do you think it's heading in our direction, that it seems like more and more?
I think it's probably one of the most important things that's happened socially in a long time. I can't think of a landmark quite like this. Having a cultural icon that is enormously popular, which frankly, I had missed it. I stopped, my brain stopped developing on music when Led Zeppelin stopped touring. So that was kind of the end of music for me at that point, and everything else was just a wannabe music. So I never even got into the rap generation. Now I have to be a lot more open-minded and appreciative. But I sure like what he's done, and what inspired him was Turning Point, and Charles Kirk, is that his name?
Charlie Kirk.
Charlie Kirk. Now he's going to have something here in the fall, right?
I don't believe
He is.
Perfect. Yeah.
Charlie Kirk's going to have a student convention here. And the reason I know that, Paula knows that, is that the Lincoln Club's paid for it. And I'm a member of the Lincoln Club. So Charlie has a big convention. There'll be several, well, last time it was about 1,000 kids that showed up. When I first saw Charlie Kirk, who the hell is this guy? I mean, where's he been? And I saw him at some public meeting pitching for money, and I said, well, this is a young hustler on the make. Good for him. And he's saying all the right things, but I didn't know a thing about him. And then his program seemed so naive. Capitalism is cool, socialism's not cool. I'm thinking, well, that's pretty lame. I never thought of an argument that way, but it's really lame. And so I really, I wasn't favorably impressed. And then he got involved in the Trump campaign, not working for Trump, but having students motivated for Trump. And I would see these pictures, and he would always have, a couple of hundred kids with the same sign, and they were all too good looking. It just looked like it was out of Hollywood. You guys following me on any of this? But it turns out, I've seen him a whole bunch of times, and he's smart. and he's not going to college. Well, he's sort of going to the University of Illinois, DeKalb, but part-time. And he has built this stuff right out of his brain, and he is pretty darn close to being an organizational master. I won't say genius, but a master. And he has developed something. He has collected a lot of money. He's tall, he's very good, he's a great salesman, and he's gotten conservatives to believe in his stuff, and he's delivered. Now, I worry that somebody that slick and that good is stealing money. I always worry about it. I've seen it plenty of times. I've seen really smart people that, got this new product and we're going to sell conservatism, and they're actually getting a whole bunch of money for themselves and pocketing it, and then you find out 10 years later the guy's a crook and he's got 15 girlfriends, and each one of them have a Ferrari. I've seen that plenty of times, the corruption and the money and the power. But so far so good. He's eloquent. And then he brought in this. Who's the woman's name that Connie supported? Come on, she's the star. Candace
Kansas Owens.
Candace
yeah.
Owens. And so he brings her in, and so she works for Turning Point. She got some media heads, and so they do campuses. So it's kind of a Milo thing. I don't buy much of what Milo says, but I love who he provokes and pisses off, so that's why I support him. And that's important to get that on campus. I mean, Milo, way over the top. I mean, come on, that's pretty good stuff. But, still, it's an important message. Between his ghost jokes, there's some good content. And though Candace shows up and she starts making an impression, she gets on Fox a couple of times, I'm assuming. But it turns out that she's got a very powerful message, and she's tough. And the leftists just, they just want to beat these guys up. And, this is what I do. I'm a free speech lawyer. That's what I do for fun. I don't get paid for it. It's just fun suing bastards and son of a bitches and fascists and putting them down. So, but Candace somehow got noticed by Connie, and that has really changed things. And I don't know where it's going to go, but the great mystery is that conservatives don't know how to communicate to this new cultural phenomenon of social media. And there's a lot of angry guys like me on Twitter, but the CEO of Twitter is controlling it, mechanizing it, marginalizing it, blacklisting it, graylisting it, so we don't get much cash. It's not our product, he owns it. We know that the guy from Twitter's a commie because, well, seriously, he puts out a tweet himself saying, hey, you gotta read this great article about the future of America. Well, I did. Did you see that? He wrote it's an article about saying, well, you know what? This country is hopelessly divided, these two leftists. This country is hopelessly divided. And one side's gonna have to win, and the other side's gonna have to submit. And there's no compromise any longer. There's two separate worlds, and so we're just gonna have to smash the right. Well, that doesn't sound like a happy, friendly dialogue to me. It sounds like it's pretty more like it. And basically they said there's a new civil war. And so the CEO of Twitter is saying, hey, great, we're gonna have a civil war, isn't that great? Of course, he doesn't know his history. I've had ancestors that I lost in the American Civil War. The Civil War is the nastiest kind of war you can have. It's brother against brother, it's family against family. It's treacherous, it's all the time. And we bled, 500,000 Americans died on both sides for one singular cause, to liberate another race of people. In the history of the world, of all of womankind, there has never been one race of people fighting over the proposition that another race of people should not be slaves. It's just never happened. Basically, every one of our ancestors going back have been slaves. Everybody's been a slave for somebody at one time or another. But we reached the point of civilization that this thing called individual liberty was so strong in the North, and a party was created out of that, our party, that it became one of those cases that there was no compromise. It had to go to war. There was a lot of warfare and battles taking place in the 1850s, bloody, nasty battles, bloody Kansas and such. And it developed until a full-fledged vicious civil war. So now we have the CEO of Twitter, the genius, saying, hey, great, we got a new civil war coming up here. And I'd like to point out one little fact for him. If there's 300 million guns in America, my side's got 80% of them. That's a stupid thing to start advocating. But, that's how the left thinks. But if he's willing to have that kind of mentality, if he's willing to actually put that in a tweet, And of course, I came back, my little 2 cents, I came back, say, hey, look, I tweeted, the CEO of Twitter is advocating a violent civil war. What a genius. Of course, it was taken down. Imagine that. You know, but he also took his Twitter down because he realized it was stupid. It was stupid and violent and ugly. So even the CEO, but it shows you he's capable of doing anything. And part of it is he doesn't want a conservative message to get traction. And so anybody, so they have the algorithms looking for conservative phrases and causes and people, and they blacklist them, and they'll suddenly their followers will disappear. And we saw what happened with Diamond and Silk and Diamond and Silk on Facebook. 1.2 million followers on Facebook, not bad at all, and they're fun. And we've all seen them, right? Diamond and Silk. I mean, they're fun. They really game it up beautifully. They're articulate. It's just kind of fun to watch. And they were kicked out of Facebook because they were harmful to the community. It wasn't explained what the harm was, and it wasn't explained what the community was. But they're not harmful to anybody. They're satire. They have fun, and they're good viewing. And so that created a blowback to the point that Zuckerberg was embarrassed in the Senate when somebody nailed him on. I think it was Ted Cruz that nailed him on that. So he backed up and said, well, that's a mistake. But this is what the left does. Our biggest enemy, sadly, in my view, is Silicon Valley. Of all the enemies to have in the world, Silicon Valley, you know, the university professors, we pretty much know what they are, not very good, but it's a dying institution. But Silicon Valley is so powerful, so rich, so elitist, so disconnected. Nobody here is going to get a job there. Who's the biochemical guy?
Me.
You? Now you won't work
I'm
there.
staying away from there.
But Silicon Valley has developed in such a monopoly and a monotone type of ideology where it's very vicious and hateful. So I tricked a gal named Harmeet Dillon to run for National Committee woman. And Harmeet said, oh, I can't do that. I'm too busy. Shawn, you know, it's going to hurt my business. I said, no, it's probably going to help your business. But plus, it'll take no time. I lied about that. And now she's National Committee woman for California. She's a Sikh, devout Sikh, India. And the Sikhs were created for one purpose 500 years ago, and that was to challenge and to stop the Muslim slaughters of Indians. And that's the sole solitary purpose. The Muslims kept coming to India, and the slaughter was so much greater in India than it was in Europe. It was not even close. You know, I mean, the slaughter was bad in Europe, very bad, still is to this day. It's very bad. But when the Muslim armies from Persia and Afghanistan and other places went into India, which was wholesale, massive Holocaust, 100 years after 100 years, and finally the Sikhs in the middle of India developed a religion, and so Harmeet's a descendant of that. To this day, as you know, Sikhs are required to wear swords. That's one of the 5 pillars. For damn good reason. You never know when the son of a bitches are going to come over the hill. You got to be armed at all times. And so she defended, some 20 years ago, Sikhs in the military wearing turbans, because that's one of the 5 pillars, and she won that case. So she's a civil rights attorney. Fast forward 20 years later, she's a National Committee woman. She actually sang a Sikh prayer at the Republican National Convention. She looked great. And first time the Sikh has ever had a prayer at a convention for either party. It was our party that did it, just like Abraham Lincoln. And now she sued Berkeley. Damn it, she beat me by a couple of weeks. I'm suing Berkeley too, but she's suing Berkeley because speakers couldn't get on campus. So she is cutting edge law. She's really smart, and she's really winning cases. And a federal judge today, just yesterday, announced that Berkeley tried to dismiss a lawsuit that they corrected all the problems. The judge wouldn't hear it. Because Harmeet goes in, she's a woman, she's Indian American, and she's smarter than anybody in the room, and she presents a case very well. So she's won that case. Now she's got another case against Google, and Google is the great enemy of mankind. It's you know, Amazon. I mean, you know, Jeff Bezos owns 100% of Washington Post, and it's the #1 hate Trump publication. Bezos' politics are very clear, and he's incomparably the richest man in the history of the world. And they're eating retail businesses alive all over America, and paying their workers like, you know, minimum wage. And so I used to go for the free market arguments. Hey, it's a new company, it's a new approach, and you know, let the markets change things. But their ideology stinks, and they hate Americans, they hate our culture, they hate our values, they hate conservatives. They're very hateful, and they also have created elaborate devices where they have protect themselves from competition. They use the government for that purpose, and they have a lot of government contracts. They've really become a monopoly, and I'm hoping that the Trump administration starts exacting some anti-trust laws against these corporations in Silicon Valley to break them up. They're too centralized, they're too powerful, and they're impervious. It turns out that this young guy, James Desmore,
Yes.
he works at Google, and he worked at Google, and he wrote an 8-page memo saying, well, the problem around here is that, you know, it's a one-sided ideology, people are punished for their views, we ought to be more open-minded, more tolerant, more intellectual diversity, and it got amazing widespread attention. It wasn't even hardcore. He was fired in 24 hours by Brent, and he saw Harmeet on TV and hired her. And so Harmeet, you know, after she researched the case, when you're suing Google and you're a lawyer and, you know, kind of a small firm with 8 people, you're suing one of the richest corporations in the history of the world. They'll hire 500 attorneys just to bury you in paperwork with truckload after truckload or stuff that'll blow up your computers, and she sued them. And then she got another 20 people that are working at Google and some ex-employees at Google. Now she's got a class action against Google. And then she got a call by one of the attorneys. She was busy. I've been trying to reach you. We want you to take your lawsuit and seal it. Well, I filed it 4 months ago. Why? Well, because all of our people you named in the lawsuit are getting death threats, and this is really dangerous for them. No, I'm not going to put it in a seal. I'm not going to go and hide it. It's been on the internet for 4 months. You're asking me something impossible. So she's got him a little bit concerned, and she's got him a little bit worried. And that's what you can do. That's what you can do. I'm suing Berkeley. My guy went to the Milo rally, back to Milo again, February 1st, and he's with his wife, and he's with a couple of gay guys, and they're all in this little pro-Trump group out of San Francisco, and they're millennials, and they go to the Milo rally, and they're walking to the deal, and they're wearing MAGA hats, and they get clobbered, just beat up. And this very attractive woman, Karina Flores, long blonde hair. She's talking to ABC TV live on the air in this big hand. You could see it on the air with industrial strength mace. And if you've never been maced, you haven't lived. We're talking immediate shutdown of your whole body functions. And you're blinded, you can't breathe, and you're tearing as red chili pepper in your face, but microscopic level chili pepper. It's a very vicious weapon. Especially the industrial strength, not the nice, cute little pink ones you get in the hardware store, but this is real kick-ass stuff. They use it, they call it bear spray. It's for bears, of course. And so she was knocked out. My guy was hit on the head, knocked down, and he's knocked unconscious. And he's straddling an overturned bicycle rack. And the guy is stomping him, tweeting himself, stomping the fascist 6 times. He says, look, I got the fascist here. I'm going to kick him again. And then his last tweet was, well, we've kicked him, you know, some liberals came over and told me that I got to quit kicking him, so I kicked him twice more in the face. And he's tweeting himself while he's doing this thing. He's got a mask on so he can't identify him. And he signed it Eugene V. Debs. Okay, raise your hand if we all know who Eugene V. Debs was. Of course, he ran for president as a socialist in 1900 to 1916, 4 times. So, you know, you can't sue a dead man, right? So it's a fake name. Well, this woman, Flores, I told you about, well, she has a job in San Francisco. She's a cybersecurity specialist for Bitcoin at 25 years old. So she does a 3-generation regression analysis, boom, finds out that the guy is really Eli Miller, who's an employee at UC Berkeley, that's in the IT department, and he owns a home. Well, he just don't own a home. I'm going to take it to social fairly shortly. But he, you know, he beat up, you know, and so we know who he was, you know, and we got his pictures. We got a pretty good case on this. My guy happens to be a very smart lawyer, young 26-year-old lawyer that was knocked unconscious and incurred a bunch of medical bills. I mean, being unconscious is definitely a concussion and potential brain damage. It's very dangerous stuff. And it was cold cock. That's what Antifa, they were all Antifa. So I got a thing with Antifa, I don't like them at all. And they are truly the new level street fighters, fascists, right from the 1930s. Yeah, they're black shirts, brown shirts, absolutely. Right from the 1920s and 30s, and it's a European thing we've not seen in America until the Antifa started showing up. We didn't even have it during World War II. It's amazing. So yeah, life is good. You know, if you want to get into the battles, you are now in the worst state in America. How many of you guys are going to leave town? Yeah, you get the hell out. Where are you going to go?
Dallas.
Of course. And you know what? Do I get thank you notes from my friends in Texas? Hey, thanks for sending me 1,000 more Republicans to Texas. Rohit Joy, there's no reason for you to know Rohit, but I knew him. He was college Republican president at Berkeley. And he graduated as a smart kid, smart Indian kid, and he made a bunch of money and you know, financial investments and such. Then he announced, and he was Contra Costa County Republican chair, young guy still, not even 30, and he just put on Facebook his one-way trip to Dallas. And you know, he says, I'm leaving California. And they had a picture on Facebook, and then it goes to Texas. There's him, you know, wearing a cowboy hat, which is kind of funny. I'm a scrawny Indian guy, a big fat cowboy hat, and you know, with "Welcome to Texas," and we're losing 3,000 of them a week.
Wow.
That's over 4 million in 20 years. We're an out-migration state. We export Republicans because one big reason is that the kids growing up, going to college, can't afford to buy the homes they were raised in. You can't build a home in California. You got too many restrictions, too many NIMBYs, YIMBYs. So now they're talking about building low-cost housing. That's really slums. They're going to be building a lot of slums. So you have a new elite, and I'll conclude with this. You have a new elite developing in California. Joel Cobb, Kenneth Chapman writes about this a lot. I'm helping raise money for his new big statewide study called The New Feudalism. And basically, we're returning to the Middle Ages. It's a South American traditional approach. We have the wealthy elites, 10 to 20%, with the masses of serfs. And right now, California has the largest percentage of poor people in America. Did you know that? The largest percentage of people in America, not Louisiana, not Alabama, but the red states. No, it's California. And the younger middle class are looking at opportunities, and you're going to Texas because
Way more jobs, opportunities, just more everything.
how about the housing costs? Oh, they're a lot less. How about schools?
Way
Better. How about public safety? Much safer. I mean, it's just not even close. Lots of housing, cheap, inexpensive housing compared to California, and the jobs are so much better. I don't want to give you guys any ideas, but if you're not thinking about it, you're crazy not to think about it. So that really is a huge sociological problem for California. It's great news for the Democrats, and if Newsom gets in, it's going to be, he's going to do to California what he did to San Francisco. Who's been to San Francisco recently? Well, what did you see Market Street?
I saw a lot of homeless people.
Well, that's all you see.
Mhm.
What parts of town?
I'm not too familiar, even though I live up there. I usually don't go there.
Yeah, of course not. Not now.
It was kind of, I wasn't really in. It was for like a specific event, so
Yeah.
it wasn't really central.
Can you lift that up, turn it off, and what I'm going to do is we don't have
Oh, yeah.
we don't have any kind of a marking pin, do we? This chemo's got it together. And I really will conclude with this because I've been talking too long and having too much. Okay, we'll let it go.
Yeah.
Use your imagination. Here in San Francisco, it's a peninsula, right? And I showed this graphs that I got, graphics that I got from San Francisco Chronicle, and they will show you from 2016 to 2017 how many needles they found on the streets, and it's a graph, tens and thousands and thousands. And they will have a color code, and you can see the Tenderloins really got a lot. And then the outskirts, you know, south of Market, Soma, there's a lot down there. And it follows the homeless entrenchments that it's cancer. The homeless thing is a complete social cancer created largely by the government. And you're no longer are they up and down Market Street, which used to be the fashionable business area. You know, you take your kids down there and you're seeing people fornicate, shooting themselves with heroin. Very, very public stuff, you know, defecating in public. And then they have another graph of human defecation. And, you know, for the whole city and county of San Francisco. And then they have a third graph, and I showed this to the Berkeley students. I get to talk to Alan Ross's poli-sci class, 700 students to me. It's a fair ratio. And I said, yeah, and so I showed them the third graph up with the diseases on particular streets. In this neighborhood, you're likely to get the highest disease factor is hepatitis C, but over here, it's more like typhoid. But in this neighborhood, they have a cholera problem. I mean, total third world problems. And that's San Francisco. That's Newsom's liberal progressive thinking. Oh, homeless, you know, they're having bad luck. He lost his job. He's got 5 kids. We got to take care of them. No, these are drug addicts and crazy people. And we face that in Orange County. And there's laws that prohibit police from saying, get the hell out of here. You can't say that anymore. ACLU has been litigating that for 30 years. The first case came down in Sundance case in downtown LA at Skid Row. This guy named Sundance, he was a drunk, and the cops would pick him up and put him in the drunk wagon, and they would take him up to the farm. And he'd be there for a year. He'd dry out 3 squares a day, exercise, fresh environment, and after a year, they'd take him back wherever he wanted to go. And if he was caught drunk again, they'd take him up to the farm. That actually was a more charitable, more noble approach than letting them die on their own vomit and getting robbed and beat up. But the ACLU did the Sundance case, and all the liberals, oh, this is so wonderful, these nice, innocent people can do whatever they want. Well, they can die a painful, miserable death on the street and not even have a chance of recovery and rehabilitation. You take their liberty away, but what kind of liberty do they have on the mean streets? And then the other is, of course, we released because of Jack Nicholson, we can't put crazy people in institutions anymore, so we closed all the major mental institutions in America, not just California. And now we have psychotics roaming the streets. And the latest example of that was in Ventura County, and the guy is sitting there with his daughter, 5-year-old daughter, sitting on his lap last Friday night, and his wife in some restaurant, a steakhouse. Crazy man goes in and cuts his throat in front of him. The blood's gushing on his daughter. And they caught him, and he's been a problem, a transient for years. And he finally snapped and had a knife and killed an innocent person. And we get a lot of that all the time. And that's part of the degradation of our society, where the violence gets out of control because of liberal policies. And a guy like that, who is just walking around talking to himself, needs help. You know, you don't shoot him, but you give him asylum, real asylum, in a creative, positive way. Not the old-fashioned, draconian prison where you drug them and put them in a cage, but we have a lot more knowledge and information on that today, and you'll find that most psychologists, progressives do, understand that you got to isolate them, put them in a safe environment where they can have a chance for having some kind of a decent, productive life without being a danger to themselves and others. And that's about 90% of the homeless deal. You got addicts and druggies, and that can be helped, and then you got psychotics and schizophrenics, bipolar, running around that really need help. And so again, it's another liberal creation. We're in this experiment called California. It's not going very well right now. Your job is to do as best as you can, make as much money as you can, and be as nimble as you can. And if you don't want to go through the hassle, you can go to Dallas and really have a free and fun time. Or you have something going on here, that'll be great. But understand that the politics aren't very good. But we do have a shot with the gas tax. It's huge. It's a big deal. We got 1 million signatures. It's going to be in the ballot. We have a shot with Sanctuary State. We're going to win the lieutenant governor's race. If you're interested, I'll tell you why. We're going to win the insurance commissioner's race. We're going to have 2 good people on statewide positions. It's possible that Newsom is so nauseous that and if a Republican gets in, well, that's like a 10 or 20% probability. But I'm not giving up. Guys, I appreciate it very much. Chemo does have one more thing.
Oh yeah. My question on the crusade.
Oh, yeah, of course, everybody's topic.
Yeah, we just wanted to ask, like, do you have a specific battle that's your favorite? Or do you have, like, this whirl? A lot of us are, well, Brian couldn't be here today because he's at work, but he's a history major.
I'm a terrible Christian. I don't go to church. And because I was raised a Methodist, and the Methodists stopped going to church 100 years ago. And they're really lazy. And if they go to church, they're a bunch of left-wingers. So, but after 9/11, I was saying, what happened? How come they're so pissed at us? What did we do? You know, I mean, why are Muslims, you know, having this thing that they got to do massive killings? And so I read, and then you start reading about the history of Muhammad, and hell, they've been doing that since Muhammad, you know, became a prophet, made himself a prophet. And the guy was one of the great psychos in world history. And his belief system was that you either become a convert by the sword, or you die, or you live in demitude. That means you have to be a subservient slave to the Muslim majority. So it's a vicious. And yeah, I'm going to still assume that 90% of Muslims are nice guys and just want to get along. Although I think that's a wildly too high of a percentage, but well, certainly 10% want to cut your hair off. Out of 1 billion people, that's 100 million. That's a lot of problems right there. And so I was curious, well, wait a minute, how long has this been going on? So I met a friend who was a Muslim, who's not a Sufi Muslim, Shia Muslim, right? From Pakistan, which they themselves are a minority, and they're getting constantly beat up by the Sunnis in Pakistan. So I didn't know that at the time, but he was a news broadcaster in Pakistan, and finally one day he had to get out. You know, he knew he was going to be killed. So the next deal, the rich. Oh, thank you. So the next deal was with. I talked with him, and he has passed. And he said, when did this community start getting angry at America? He says, well, Shawn, the Wahhabi movement was really angry at America 200 years before America existed. And so that's sort of opening it up. So this has been an ongoing problem, not for several hundred years, and I dug deeper, and I'm thinking, well, let's have a look at this Crusades. What the hell was going on? The Crusades is something that every professor here hates. These Christians killing little innocent Muslim children. You know, that's the PC. It's a total lie. There's some good revisionist material that's come out in the last 20 years about this. So that's become my thing. I said, well, our ancestors at some point understood this much better than we understand it today. And the first crusade took place in the year 1100, and that was to liberate Jerusalem. Because Christians have always been going to Jerusalem to celebrate the birth and the resurrection. But the trouble is, when they went to Jerusalem, many of them never came back. And so there was the first idea was, well, the Muslims had taken over that part of the world, and so let's provide a safe corridor. But it became much bigger than that, because Islam was created in the 7th century. By 100 years, they had conquered half the Christian world. In 100 years, they took all of North Africa, all of the Middle East, and then they took over Spain. And it was lightning fast. It was amazing. They had the warriors, they had the discipline, they had cavalries, and the Christian soldiers didn't know what the hell was going on. They were just getting slaughtered in the field. And finally, they got all the way through, they crossed the Pyrenees, and they were taking over France, and finally Charles Martel met them at the Battle of Tours, and that was one of the most important battles in all of world history. And it was just a battle. It wasn't like a war, it was a battle. And the Franks were there, and what Europeans did at that time is they took a vacation for a couple of months and then fought their neighbors. And then they took another vacation and fought somebody else down the street. They were always fighting warriors. They were in a sense, barbarians becoming nation states. These were the same guys that fought the Romans. But the Franks were better organized, they were Christians, and they knew well in advance what the hell was going on in the south of France, and these were bad guys. And so the Moors had they had cavalries, and they were effective, deadly, with big fat horses, and the Franks were on the ground, they were infantry, like the Roman legions. And so it was looking like it was going to be another slaughterhouse. But Charles Martel was wise, had good intelligence, and so he planned the battlefield where he had the elevated ground, where he couldn't be outflanked by the horses because it was a valley, but he did something that was terribly important. They had always had pikes to hold back the horses, but they were too short. What he did is he doubled their length. That was the key. And so the Moors had such, they were just pillaging and raping and having the greatest time that young guys like to have, you know, having their way over France, but they also had an enormous baggage train of loot. And that was the deal. They were just getting loot because every warrior who lived long enough would take the loot back home and live like a king. That was the deal. You know, so and so they had this huge amount of loot. It was like moving warehouses of crap, you know, on horseback. So they had that set aside. So Martel had the right type of approach. And you know, warriors in those days knew if you don't fight effectively, you're going to be dead in a very short period of time. So it stopped the horses. And then Martel had it set up that he had his own horsemen, but not to the extent that the Moors did. They went behind to the baggage train, and they slaughtered everybody in the baggage train. The word got around, oh shit, they got my loot! And so some of the Moors started going backwards. But the big thing was they got the Muslim chief, and they killed him. And that created a panic. And before you knew it, giving you a Victor David Hanson writes a great book called Culture and Carnage about the 10 most important battles. It's worth reading. Victor David Hanson, you've seen him a ton of times at the Hoover Institute, he's on Fox all the time. He writes about war and ancient Greek wars, and you read everything he does, it'll change your life. But so they retreated. That was the first objective stop of the Muslim advance in Europe. And had that not been successful, we'd be bowing down 5 times a day. And, you've heard other historians mention that, and that was a terrible. And it took 200 years. Charlemagne, the grandson of Charles Martel, pushed him back up to the Pyrenees, but that took 200 years, and then it took another 500 years to push him out of Spain. I was fascinated with that. So these were incredible, vicious, ugly, horrible times. So I wanted to look, see, well, who are these men, mostly men, who were fighting the Muslims? And what the Crusades was defensive. 2/3 of Christendom had disappeared by the 11th century. Just was gone. And they were moving in Eastern Europe. They would move on to Spain, encroached on France. They were attacking Italy, and with huge navies and huge armies. They attacked Vienna, and so I always got engrossed in the history. So here's what I do. I celebrate each victory of Christendom starting from the 7th century to the present time. I've expanded it to celebrate the Sikhs' victories over the Muslims, and I've expanded it to include the Israeli victories over their enemies. So I send out, in fact, I'll tell you when the next great battle is.
Excellent. And speaking of Israeli victories too, we will be working with the Israeli group on campus, along with the Jewish group on campus, and we're bringing IDF week 8.
Big news, Saturday, April 28th, what are you doing? I'm going to do 2 things on Saturday. I'm going to celebrate the Battle of Attock, 1758, when the Sikhs defeated Islam in northern India. That great holiday, nobody knows about it, but I'm constantly looking, searching the web. And so we get our Sikh brothers and the Indians. The Sikhs are the ones that saved and defended India. They're warriors. They're armed all the time. So, plus, at 2:45, I'm going to have to see Vice President Pence. Damn! Wow. Damn. Me and Michelle stuck with that terrible job again at LAX airport. But I don't know the official airport, and I don't know the official time, but it's at 2:45 at LAX. So that's going to be really cool. So anyhow, that's what I do. And if you're on my cool mailing list, or you're my Facebook friend, And I keep hitting 5,000, so I have to take out the, the riffraff once in a while. So become my friend, Shawn Steele Zone. Or, if you really want to get really hyped up, become my Twitter friend. And then you'll see what dangerous things the National Committee man can do late at night. Donald Trump has nothing on me, so that's Shawn Steele 1. Guys, thanks very much. You've listened a long time.